So good. Hey there, everybody. If you guys are new to my channel, my name is Gray Estrada, and I am what you call a Chinese medicine lifestylist. So, what this means, you guys, is that I take the lifestyle aspects of Chinese medicine and I facilitate them for my clients. So, typically, Chinese medicine is seen as acupuncture and herbs. I take the lifestyle pieces of movement arts, seasonal eating, meditative technique, augmenting your physical environment through the principles of feng shui, given your personality structure. And one of the things I do is face reading. And so, sort of the portal of entry to work with me is face reading, which means I look at your face, I give you an elemental breakdown, and then from there, I build out your lifestyle guidance based off of the principles found in Chinese medicine. So, in addition to this, I'm also the host of Lifestyle Medicine, my own podcast. So, the large overarching umbrella is Omni Health and Lifestyle. Underneath that is Lifestyle Medicine. And then on my YouTube channel here, what I'm going to start doing is a face reading series. And what I'm going to be doing is taking the lens of Chinese traditional face reading and applying it to very well-known people. So that's my goal with this entire series, is to start looking at people's faces because that are very well known and breaking down personality structure, aptitudes, strengths, and all through the context of face reading. So the caveat, okay, the little like disclaimer I like to give with face reading is this: face reading is not psychic fortune telling. People, if they hear about this subject, they often think like, oh, this is just going to be, like getting a psychic reading and I'm going to tell you your future. And that's not what this is. Face reading comes from thousands of years of pattern recognition, trial and error, and observation through writing. That's what the Chinese did very well. They would see patterns in nature, in animals, in people, in sickness, in faces, and then they would document it. So imagine if a culture documented patterns and they started recognizing rhythms in the culture, in faces, in behaviors, in habits. You fast forward 5,000 years, you've got a considerable amount of data. So the thing that I try to stress is that face reading is not about having this exact science where you're right every single time. Like, I'm not right every time. I'm not here to tell you that like what I'm going to say about the rock is 100% for sure accurate. What I'm saying is the theory, according to thousands of years of observation, is like likely there are some things here that are going to be like true for the rock. And at the same time, there's always exceptions to the rule, and the features are always relative on the face, which means my nose on a different face with a different set of eyes and a different chin is going to mean something different than in the context of my face and my features. And that's the tricky part about face reading. That's the art, is how do you read the features relative to the other ones and make sense of it, and how do you intuit and sort of give guidance to the person. Now, for me personally, in doing this, this is a two-way street. I also hunt from the other direction. So what I look for is I look at people's life rhythms, and famous people are very easy to research, obviously. Their lives are made very public. I look for those things, and then I look for the marks that should technically be there in theory. Are they? Sometimes, sometimes not. But I approach it both ways. This is sort of an evolution in how do I hone this skill and get really sharp at it. Not about being perfect, not about being right, and not being in the classification of psychic fortune telling. That's not what this is. This is a pragmatic, observation-based science and art. It's highly fascinating. It's helped me tremendously. And as such, I think it's interesting to read other people. So that said, I am going to go through here and do the rock, okay, and start giving you all of the layers of Chinese medicine. As the definitions come up, I will give them. And the last little piece I will say about face reading, the way to have the buy-in factor, to actually listen to some of what I say and not just think of this as new age bullshit, is this: form and function matter in the natural world. The analogy I always use is that the way a monkey is built and the way a tiger are built are very different. And we would all agree that their physical structure points to the aptitudes and the strengths that they carry and fulfill in their natural environment. So tiger is large and has big, sharp teeth, which means it's a carnivore. Monkeys have smaller, lighter bodies with longer limbs, different set of teeth. It points to something different. People are no different, right? Facial features are very indicative of aptitudes, personality traits. And We see in Western medicine, we know this for a fact, that when someone has jaundice, they turn yellow. When someone's on dialysis, they get very dark under the eyes. If someone's face gets beet red, they might have blood pressure problems. So we see fluctuations in the face. And what Chinese medicine says is, yes, disease can change the color of a face, and so can your mental and emotional habits. So can your lifestyle. It'll show up on the face, and the attributes of your face point to natural strengths and aptitudes. And in theory, you should lean into those, because life's going to get a little easier when you align with that which you are. So, without further ado, let's hop in and start talking about The Rock. So, The Rock, wow. I mean, where to begin? First of all, I admire the hell out of this guy. His drive, his will, his success. I mean, he's pretty impressive. But The Rock is basically a specimen in what we would call Jing. So Chinese medicine has these three treasures that are called Jing, Qi, and Shen. Jing is the material essence. This is what you could call your genetic constitution, your sexual vitality. It's also the sexual fluids that can replicate life. So Jing, okay, when a person has a lot of Jing, there's some signs and attributes to a person who has a lot of Jing. One is size. So The Rock is fucking huge. 6'5", 260 pounds of solid muscle. So if you look at this picture of The Rock when he's 15, I mean, come on, bro. 15, and look at that structure. His shoulders are so goddamn wide, and he's just huge. I mean, he's a specimen. It's ridiculous. Total genetic freak. So to begin with, he's got that huge bone structure. He's got a strong jaw. He's got big teeth. He's got a wide face, a thick neck. These are all signs of Jing and size. That 6'5" stature is no joke. So he has a lot of Jing. When a person has a lot of Jing, that means they're going to have a lot of constitutional strength, usually physical strength, lasting power. They can do a lot. And The Rock is definitely that guy. So he's got a lot of it in his face, but also in his body. Now, the next treasure is Qi. So unfortunately, this word has gotten a lot of bad press in modern times in the context of martial arts, because we see these Qi masters that are apparently moving people with their Jedi mind tricks, and it's just bullshit, basically. And it's really, it takes a lot of credibility out of the context in which it's meant to be used, which basically means Qi is the vital energy we use on a day-to-day basis that's based off of the quality of the food we eat, the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the thoughts we think and feel. All those things make Qi. And really what the modern definition is, bioelectric current. Our bodies are 80% water, give or take. Our central nervous system is electrical in nature, which means that we have basically, our bodies are sort of like a big hydroelectric water conductor. That's what we are. That's what we do. So our bodies store electricity well. And in the modern context, they call this bioelectricity. The Chinese believed that your bioelectric current could be refined, augmented, uplifted, and eventually transformed through breathing techniques, mindset, and lifestyle. There are things you can do to make that current better. So when we talk about Qi, when I talk about that, that's what I'm going to be referring to in this context. The last thing is Shen. That's the third treasure, which is what we would call the immaterial aspect of a person. The consciousness, the spirit, the anima that can be felt in the personality or the person's vibe, but that you can't measure and you can't quantify. It's just something that's felt. So The Rock in particular has got very strong Jing. He's got very strong Qi. He has no overt blemishes or discolorations. He's got a very even coloring, which means collectively he's a pretty healthy guy. Now, mind you, he works out all the time. He eats really well. He drinks a lot of water. He's in a high vibrational emotional state most of the time because he's so damn successful. So his Qi, his bioelectric current looks good. Like he doesn't have any of like the big telltale like, ooh, he's in trouble. Even the marks that I thought I would find on him that would show like lifestyle depletion and maybe like too much, he really doesn't, which is really impressive and a testament to the Jing that he carries. Now his Shen is just magnetic. So when you see The Rock, he's big, he's charismatic, he's got so much damn charisma coming, just beaming out of him, that's all Shen traits too. So it's the spirit, it's that anima, it's that twinkle in the eye. So if you watch the banter that he has, which is fucking hilarious, the banter he has with Kevin Hart, those two on social media just get me weak. I love watching them go back and forth. They're hilarious. But a lot of that charm, that wit, that vivaciousness, that's all that bright Shen or spirit coming out. Now, in the context of face reading, there are 5 types of luck that can be emitted or felt from the face. I'm not going to go into all of them right now. You guys will get tastes of other ones when I do other videos. But what he's got a lot of is sparkling peach luck and something called direct peach luck. So what does that mean? Peaches are lucky in Chinese culture, so that's a cultural reference. Sparkling has to do with the sort of glittery aspect of a person's luck. So he has like that twinkle, that wit, and that charm that aligns with what they call sparkling peach luck, right? It's like a shiny, sparkling object. The Rock has that for sure. He's definitely has that presence, and it's very common in actors, performers. So The Rock being, in wrestling, being in movies, being in front of the camera is not a problem for him. That's very true with people that have that type of luck. The other one is called direct peach luck, which means that The Rock specifically has quite a bit of that direct luck energy, which means even if he's not trying to be witty or funny in his gaze or his, what did they call it in Jumanji? I think it was the smoldering look, where he gets all intense. But The Rock has that intensity that's very direct. And even if it's directed at you and it's not friendly, there's still something sort of magnetic about it. His intensity still has a draw and it's still very alluring. And that's that direct peach luck. So he's got those 2 types of luck. And that's kind of a breakdown of the Jing, Qi, and Shen for The Rock. Now, when we look at his forehead, okay, and his hairline, in Chinese medicine, okay, the face is seen as a topography. It's seen as a geographic landform of sorts, and this geography is indicative of somewhat to a degree of how your life is going to go. Now, this doesn't mean, again, not psychically, like I can look at your face and tell you what's going to happen in 30 years. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, though, that certain shapes, certain colors, certain bone structures are going to probably lean you towards certain aptitudes and often means certain things. So in The Rock's case, this broad forehead, okay, this area, the broad forehead, a wide forehead, the forehead is called the palace of inheritance. So this has to do with the bigger this area is, the more sort of like inheritance you get in terms of gifts. Like there's a certain piece of having a broad, wide forehead that means that you have accessibility to that which came before you. Now, The Rock, when he was still had hair, I don't know if he's totally bald now or if he's just shaving or what he's doing, but he had a high hairline. So it wasn't a total traditional widow's peak. So like my hairline, if you look, I have an M hairline, sort of a widow's peak. And I too have a high hairline. And in Chinese medicine, this is actually seen as auspicious because this area relates to the mind. So the higher the hairline, this means the wider the range of the intellect, more varied interests, the ability to assess and look at opportunities, that open, expansive mind. So The Rock has always had a high hairline, which means he has that open mind for opportunity, which is very true if you look at his business choices. And it's also a sign of what they would call a surplus of yin or sensitivity, the ability to feel into situations and basically have a pretty good bullshit meter if you have the higher hairline. So the Rock, we see this. This is typically what it means with someone with this high hairline. And let's see. The next piece on his face is if we look at what we call the liver lines. Okay, so if I furrow, you guys can see those 2 little lines I get between my eyebrows. So they call this in Chinese medicine liver lines. Now, when liver lines are pathological is when the lines stay there and they're really deeply grooved in the face all the time, even when a person's face is at rest. But to get them and to have them isn't inherently pathological. Now, mind you, people don't like these lines, but it can often be a sign of a very strong liver. So the liver relates to the wood element in Chinese medicine, and what that means is that a person has drive, vigor, and follow-through, which The Rock has got a ton of. So I think in his case, it's not pathological. It's a sign of very strong, direct driving force that he has. It's a very strong liver. People with strong livers are in martial arts. They're weightlifters. They're athletes. Strong livers need a lot of exercise, and The Rock is definitely this. And those lines are indicative of that. So again, not pathological in my estimation. Now, his eyes, okay? He's got pretty sizable eyes. When you guys see The Rock and he does his crazy eyes and he gets all heated, I mean, he's very intense looking, but he's got pretty sizable eyes. Now, you've heard in other traditions, people will say that the eyes are the gateway to the soul. So this is true in Chinese medicine as well. The light of the spirit comes out of the eyes. But what this means, what they found through observation of thousands of years, is that the larger-eyed people typically are a little bit more of an open book in terms of emotionality, which means they're willing to be seen. They're willing to open up and talk about themselves. They're willing to open and talk about their process. And The Rock definitely does that. Now, mind you, he doesn't touch politics, and he's pretty smart. He stays in his lane, but he shares a lot about his successes, what he does. Yes, it's business related. Yes, he's promoting himself, but he's also got heart behind what he's doing. He does open up and share. He just posted the video just a few days ago about talking about how his dad passed. It's a really nice 7-minute message, that he was just talking about his dad. It was heartfelt, but those big eyes align with that. People with larger eyes typically are a little bit more open emotionally. Now, when we look at his face, if you look at this picture and you see where he's got these lines, the smile lines, okay, when a person smiles and they get what they call the crow's feet, which my teacher Lillian hates that term. She calls them joy lines. It means they're happy lines, basically. The person who has those has a lot of joy. But when you see the lines on the Rock's face, how they sort of go down his cheek, and those smile lines leak from the eye, almost like tears, down into the cheek area. What the Chinese saw over thousands of years, just of observation and theory, is that people that have these lines, usually it's a sign of prolonged depression or sadness. Now, again, very easy to verify this if you look up The Rock. The Rock has gone on record many times saying that he had years of battling just gnarly depression. It was very difficult patches throughout his life. And when we look at The Rock and you see these lines on his face, it definitely matches, okay? So this is one of the times the theory does match. Those lines that go down, and they don't look bad on him at all. When he smiles, his wrinkles definitely work for him. And so the idea is that these things are not pathological. If those lines were grooved into his face when he was not smiling, I would say, yeah, he spent probably too many years in depression, and he's going to have to do some lifestyle stuff to get himself out of that. So that being said, The Rock has years of depression, and you can see it in these lines, okay? These are the sadness lines that kind of leak down into the cheek. So if you know someone, look at their face. Someone that has had experienced prolonged sadness or prolonged depression or bouts of depression, look and see if these lines are there. It's not a foolproof method, you guys, but often it's true. Now, if we go and we look at his ears, this is interesting, okay? The ears are technically their own microsystem, okay? But at the same time, they relate to a couple different things. For one, kidney energetics. So you can look at the state of the kidneys by looking at the ear. And one of the things they noticed was people with very large ears typically are more of risk takers. People that have really small ears are more pragmatic and less risky in their dealings. The Rock has ears somewhere in between. For his frame and the size of his head, his ears are not very large and they're not very small. They're right in between, which means The Rock most likely has a very real pragmatic approach and also has a little bit of risk involved. He's willing to risk and put his balls on the line, and at the same time not just leap at every opportunity. He's got a really nice blend, and I think that's served him very well in his business dealings, because he doesn't look like he's just investing and dumping money and losing millions here left and right. He's pretty consistent. He's got a team of people that help him pick out and identify optimal business choices, and he goes for them, but he's measured about it as well. He's not just leaping off, into the crazy land with all these, really obscure opportunities. So one of the areas that we can relate this, you can look at it, is look at MMA fighters. Look at people like Alex Honnold, the free climber. Big Dumbo ears that just, that are definitely sizable, indicative of risk taking. Okay, Alex Honnold's ears are huge, and it's definitely the theory holds true. Risky behavior. If you look at what's his name? Tony Ferguson from the MMA. Big ears, super aggressive fighter. A lot of fighters have big ears. So you'll see the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys who have the cauliflower ears, but their ears are naturally just big and large. These are people that are risk takers. They're willing to get into physical confrontation. They're willing to put their body at risk. They're willing to put things on the line. So again, The Rock is somewhere right in between. And I think that served him well. Now, his nose. Okay, he's got a really strong nose. So we've got to drop a little bit of theory here. In face reading, one of the things they look at is something called the mountains and rivers of a face. Again, the face is seen as a topographical map of sorts. The areas that contain moisture are seen as the rivers. So that's the eyes, because they're wet. The ears have earwax, which means they're wet or have moisture. The nostrils and the mouth. These areas that have moisture are seen as the rivers. Now the mountains are the large bony protrusions. We're looking at the forehead, the cheekbones, okay, the nose, and the jaw. Not the chin, that's a water feature, but the actual jaw itself, the bones and the nose. Those are all the mountains, all right? The largest mountain on the face is the nose. So if you look at my face from profile, the nose, like most people, it protrudes, some more than others. but this is seen as the largest mountain. And they also have age brackets on the face. So the Chinese believed that from the hairline down to the top of the eyebrows was regulated. This area was regulated by your 20s. So if you could actually look for lines and look for things here in the 20s, traumas, maybe blessings, who knows. And then from the top of the eyebrows to the bottom of the eyes is your 30s. And then the bridge of the nose and the entirety of the nose are your 40s. Upper lip, 50s. 60s down into the chin, 70s down into the bottom of the chin, and then 80s and 90s and beyond up into this jawline area. So when we look at The Rock, he's got a wide, big, prosperous nose. He's got like a very lucky nose. So noses that are broad, full, and dominant on the face are actually seen as good. And it usually means your 40s are going to kick ass, according to Chinese medical theory. Do some people with a great nose have really shitty 40s? Absolutely. And it's probably because there are other features on the face that are relative that throw it off. But in theory, right, a good nose means good 40s. I believe The Rock is in his late 40s right now, 48, maybe 49. And his 40s have been pretty damn amazing if you've followed him in the last, 8 to 10 years, whatever it's been for him. So, great nose, okay? Really prosperous. And one of the things that's really interesting, just made me think about this, is that I'm eventually going to do one for Michael Jackson. When Michael Jackson started getting all of his plastic surgery and he started shrinking his nose, it's very interesting to notice that how his finances and his fortune, his prosperity started to decline. The more facial stuff he did, the unluckier he got. And I'll go into that and save that for the Michael Jackson talk. But in any case, The Rock's got a kick-ass nose. Okay, so I'm all for that. Now, let's talk about his interpersonal nature and his public persona. Chinese medicine is very big on this. Yin and yang theory, okay, polarities. Alpha and omega, beginning and the end. Birth and death, male and female, fire and water, hard and soft. There's polarities always. And this comes down fundamentally to the body as well. The right side of the body has a certain polarity, as does the left. Our hands are different usually. If you look at your right hand and left hand, there's going to be slight differences in both. So the Chinese said, well, this means something. It has all to do with yin-yang polarity. So what they found over time was that the right side of the face, what they found according to their theory, was that the right side related to the public persona. The right side of your face is what you show the world. It's what you show people on a first date. It's the character you play, more or less. The left side of the face is the interpersonal nature. That's more of what you're looking at in terms of how the person actually operates inside, interpersonally, with family, with friends, day to day, with their children. So for the people out there listening, if you're dating someone new, and you want to get a read for like both sides, as you're talking to a person, try to isolate and look at the right side of their face. That's the public persona that they're showing. And then look at the left side and tune into that left side and see what you feel. And ideally, you want to feel good and comfortable with their left side, their interpersonal nature. So the public persona, if you're like, ooh, it's a little rough, but the left side feels good, that's actually auspicious. So in any case, when we look at The Rock's face here, what you guys are looking at, okay, the picture on the left, all right, is The Rock's right side. It's the right side of his face mirrored. So I'm going to say that again. The left picture is his right side mirrored, two rights put together. The picture on the right is his left side mirrored. So two lefts put together. So again, the right side is his left side mirrored. The left side is his right side mirrored. I know that's hard to, I hope you don't get those wires crossed, but the picture on the left is his public persona. So you'll notice that The Rock's face is very symmetrical. Both look like The Rock. There's not a huge difference in his facial structure on both sides. But the left side is the public persona side. And that side's a little bit wider and a little bit more masculine, a little bit more dominant. Looks more like the football player, just a little more aggressive. The interpersonal side is a little softer, a little bit more subdued, slightly narrower, and looks a little bit more approachable. So in the context of face reading, it's auspicious to have the interpersonal nature look softer and nicer. Because what that means is this person, The Rock, it looks like, is actually going to be probably a little bit softer in his interpersonal dealings. But his public persona looks like no bullshit, right? It looks tough. It looks like get ready down to business. And that's how he runs. That is the public persona that he lives. So in this theory, this holds true from what, I don't know him personally, but from what fans post about him, what people say about him in interviews, what directors say about him. He's a very nice guy, interpersonally very friendly. Now, he's also very symmetrical. So both of those are, both sides of his face, are symmetrical on both sides. which is part of why he's good looking. Symmetry and, being attractive goes hand in hand. But also, it's seen lucky in the context of Chinese face reading because there's not any huge asymmetries and huge swings in personality. So I'm going to do now a little bit of the 5-element breakdown. So in Chinese medicine, they have this idea of the 5 elements. Okay, Ayurveda, that comes out of India, they have their own elements. Every world tradition has their own elemental breakdown, but the basic idea is this: these 5 phases or 5 rhythms: fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. These are rhythms in nature that human beings have been dependent upon since the dawn of time, and because of that, they're life-giving, which means, we need to have contact with these elements on a regular basis to stay healthy. Now, the elements, because they show up in the natural world and man is connected to nature, we have these rhythms inside of us too. So this shows up in emotional habits, movement habits, thinking habits, specific organs, pathologies, and disease. The 5 elements is a very complex system, very elegant and also very simple in some ways in Chinese medicine. But the basic idea is that we all have the elements inside of us. Some of us have a greater allocation or greater surplus of certain elements. Some people have a lot of fire and a lot of earth. Some people have a lot of metal and wood. It's different for everybody, okay? But we all have a little bit of everything. So I'm going to talk about the rock and where we can see this specifically in the context of the face. So, fire. The rock has pretty strong fire. Now, why I say this is because going back to that charisma, charm, and anima, that sparkling peach luck, okay? He's got one of those faces that's very dynamic and sort of lights up a room. It's very intense, but he gets a lot of wrinkles in the right places. When he smiles, he wrinkles up. He's getting older, of course. This happens as we get older. But he's got good, healthy fire, okay? And the fact that he loves to be in the limelight, the spotlight, is an actor or a performer, it very much follows suit that his face has fire. And you can see it. He's got some nice anima and light to his face. Now, the earth is mild to moderate in him. Earth people typically have fleshier faces, okay? My face, which is a little bit fleshier and a little bit fuller, has more earth and more water. The rock, less so, all right? But he does have a relatively full mouth, which is indicative of earth element. So the earth element, when a person has a full mouth, the fuller the lips and the mouth, these are people that like things of the senses. They like good smells. They like good surfaces, things that are comfortable. They like a certain niceness to their lifestyle. They're of house and home. So outside of the rock's mouth, he doesn't have a ton of earth features. Like he's not real earthy. His mouth is like a good balance. He's got some, but it's not a ton. All right. And so what this means is earth people who have a lot of earthy features, they like to lounge. They like to relax. They like to have leisure. That's definitely not the rock. Homeboy is on the go 24/7, 365. I mean, that guy rarely rests. It's not like he needs comfort to perform. Like, not at all. He's on the go all the time. So his earth element is like on the lower side. His metal is pretty strong. Square face, also kind of rectangular, but like square features, angular features, and a big nose. Okay, that's a metal feature. So he's got some like sizable metal. Metal is about cleanliness, precision, cutting through the bullshit, being of beauty. Okay, so the way the rock dresses, right? Yes, he's an actor. Yes, he's in Hollywood, but he's very GQ. He always dresses well. People are dressing him because he's a celebrity, but he's got a certain cleanliness to his appearance. The rock never looks dingy or unkempt. He doesn't look dirty in any capacity. He's very clean. So one of the ways we can look at this is that in Chinese medicine, the lungs regulate the skin, and this relates to the metal element. And so anything of the exterior, how we present ourselves, dressing well or having mismatched clothes can be a disharmony in the metal element. Dressing well and having a good exterior presentation is a strong metal element. And the rock has that. He has that in his physical appearance, but in his face too. He's got clean lines. Okay, there's something shiny and polished about the way he looks that's great. So the other piece is water, okay? His water features are moderately strong, okay? He's got some rounded features, but he's got quite a bit of angularity, but he does have big eyes. He's got big nostrils. He's got a pretty big mouth, and he's got medium-sized ears. So he has some water features that are large. And one of the things they look at in Chinese medicine is that your facial features, the mountains and rivers, the size of the bones and the size of the water features are indicative to the geography that is most ideal for you. So given the size of the rock's water features, but the rest of his face doesn't have a lot of wateriness lightness to it. The Rock is essentially looks like he would do really well in Hawaii. He would do well like as a Pacific Islander, which is, I know his genetic heritage hails from there. So he would definitely fall into that category and would do well there. So a place with like big mountains and big water, as he would say, a place with a lot of mana, right? A lot of chi, or a lot of vital energy. So his features definitely are conducive to that. And then in terms of his wood, okay, he's got pretty sizable amount of wood element in his face too. So he has a rectangular shaped skull collectively, like he's more rectangular in his framing of his face than he is square. And he's also got a really strong jawline, and he's got pretty full eyebrows. So the wood element shows up in the face through the integrity of the jawline, not the chin, but the actual jawline, and then the fullness of the eyebrows. So with those two features, the strong jaw and those full eyebrows, a lot of wood element energy, which is regulated by the liver, and the liver regulates the connective tissue. So ligaments, fascia, tendons, and people that have strong livers like that need vigorous exercise. And you know, from if you follow The Rock on Instagram, it's incredible to see what he puts his body through on a daily and weekly and monthly and yearly basis. That guy works out so damn hard. And part of that is just very strong wood. So people that can do that to their bodies usually have very strong ligaments and connective tissue. So the last little piece is the lifestyle guidance. As I said at the beginning of this, that's sort of what I do for a living. Is I look at a person's face, and then from there build out a custom tailored approach to their life and to their living rhythms. So the caveat with this that I have to say is, by me making the suggestions is not saying that The Rock is doing anything wrong. Not at all. What I'm saying is Chinese medicine is geared towards longevity. That's the whole point of Chinese medicine, is to align with longevity. So the suggestions I'm making are to increase his longevity and quality of life. All right. Some people are designed truly, and I'm saying this non-judgmentally, some people are designed to bulldoze through life and go out in a ball of glory really fast. Like Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was dead at 32. The way he trained, the speed and intensity of his life, his training methods were explosive, and he was dead from a brain aneurysm very young. And that's just the way it's supposed to go for some people. That's their karma. That is their dharma. That's the way it is. So again, this isn't me saying The Rock is doing something wrong, but if he were to align with longevity, right? If The Rock were my client, which would be fucking awesome, first of all, I would be giving him these suggestions, okay? And it's not a ton, but the first one would be less intensity in the workouts. So we can see this in his face. All of us, as we age, we start to become what they call yin deficient, okay? The fluid in the body. This is why we start to wrinkle. We actually carry less fluid as we age. And one of the ways that we want to do this, and the reason I'm saying less intensity for him, is to moderate and to conserve the yin that he does have. So the idea is this. Chinese medicine says that there's a balance between yin and yang in the body. So if we think of a kerosene lantern, the fluid, the kerosene, the liquid, the flammable liquid is the yin, that's the material, and then the yang would be the fire and the light that's being given off. So if the fluid in the lantern goes out, the kerosene goes out, there is no flame, there is no yang, there is no energy. So you want to conserve yin, and that's why Chinese medicine and its methods are really geared around slowing down, conserving, storing, resting appropriately so that the body can conserve its yin and you can have that a longer life. That's the basic idea. So for The Rock, I would say he's a little yin deficient. You know, his skin and his body just a little bit has gotten really tight and it's starting to get hollowed out. Part of that is because of his age, and part of it is just how hard he works out. So the thing I would say to him is be like, higher reps, lighter weight, drop 20 to 25 pounds, still stay ripped, still stay fit, still be a stud. I mean, he'll always be a stud, but take it down a little bit so the body is not having to deal as you get older with so much structural weight. If you look at The Rock's history of his injuries and surgeries, it is no joke. That guy has had hernias, torn knees, torn ligaments, shoulders. I mean, you name it. Like, he has put his body through hell and back, and The Rock is right at that age right now. He's going to be crossing 50 here, and that's when the body starts to go, ouch. Everything you've been doing up to this point is starting to hurt. And that's something that I would stress to The Rock, is to like take the intensity down. The body does not get, the ligaments don't get fundamentally stronger. They can get more pliable and have more dexterity and have better circulation, but they're not just going to be as resilient as they were in your 20s. So lighter weight, that'd be my suggestion for the rock. Higher reps. I would also encourage him to do more restorative exercises. And what that means is exercises that have circularity built into them. Things like swimming, where he's getting rotation in the joints. Something like, Tai Chi, something like Qigong. Something that's going to stretch and pull tissues without putting so much strain on the body. So some sort of restorative, relaxed movement in some capacity. If the rock took up salsa, I mean, that could work too, like whatever he would want to do. But I would align with that. And then I would also give him earth activities, because he doesn't have a lot of earth in his face with the exception of his mouth. So that means more rest, more leisure, less doing, which I think would be damn near impossible for a guy like this. But in terms of longevity, to conserve life force for your family and for just living, would be to do a little bit less. So the last piece, the last dietary piece, again, this is not a judgment or saying anything. The Rock gets all of his macros. He works out every day. He has his cheat meals. But to replenish yin, okay, the fluid and the moisture in the body, the things that keep us lubricated, I would tell the Rock to eat more fat, healthier fats. I know he has, I believe, 2 fish oil capsules a day, which is nothing. And then he has his cheat meals on those Sundays whenever he does it. So I would say fat, that slimy, slimy substance that we do that's oily, is aligned with yin. And it's very good for anti-inflammatory processes. And for what he puts his body through, I would say a higher, healthier fat diet. So I would push him towards fish oils, cod liver oil, grass-fed butter, grass-fed ghee, coconut oil, these kinds of things that have rich omega-3 content, but put a little bit more fat into the body just to conserve the yin for greater longevity. So, you guys, that is my initial take and read on the Rock. Thank you for making it through the video. If you guys would like me to face read someone that has a great face or a pathological face, my goal is to actually profile serial killers as well. If you guys have someone though, please write it in the comment section. And if I see enough consistency of names of people that want to be read, I will read that person. And if you guys want a reading from me for this process to be done to you, please reach out to me. You can reach me at my website, which is omnihealthandlifestyle.com. All my contact information is there. It's a 75-minute consultation where you can leave it as a face reading, or if you want to work with me for a more prolonged period, then there are a number of months that I can work with you and sort of facilitate lifestyle guidance for you. So that's pretty much everything, you guys. I appreciate your time. Leave some comments below. And if you guys have not liked and subscribed to my channel, please do so and hit that bell notification button so you get updated to all my cool, awesome content as I create it. Thanks a bunch, you guys. Take care.